At the beginning of the movie, a man named Dalton Russell is seen inside a small cell. He claims that he has recently carried out the perfect bank robbery. In the next scene, we flash back to the robbery in progress. In New York City, a group of masked robbers dressed in painters' coveralls arrive in a van outside a Manhattan Trust Bank branch. They start unloading what looks like painting equipment onto handcarts. Dalton, who is one of the robbers disguised as a painter, enters the bank and places two large, high-intensity flashlights on a small table in the center of the lobby. He turns them on and directs the beams toward two of the bank's security cameras, effectively blinding them. Then, Dalton walks behind a security guard and quietly threatens him with a gun. At the same time, the rest of the crew rushes into the bank, armed and wearing masks. They throw smoke bombs and quickly take control of the customers and employees inside.
Everybody get down on the fucking floor now!
Like that, old man! Put your fucking hands down!
Meanwhile, outside the bank, Sergeant Collins, an NYPD patrol officer, notices smoke coming from under the entrance doors. When he tries to open the doors and finds them locked, he immediately contacts police dispatch. At a nearby police station, Detective Keith Frazier is on the phone with his girlfriend Sylvia, a desk officer at another precinct. They are discussing a corruption case involving a drug dealer who framed Frazier, making it look like he stole drug money. This accusation is preventing him from being promoted to detective first grade. Soon after, Frazier and his partner Bill Mitchell are called into the office of Captain Matthias Coughlin, who assigns them to handle the ongoing hostage situation at the Manhattan Trust Bank. They accept the assignment eagerly and head to the scene. As they make their way to the bank, the NYPD responds in full force. Patrol units, a mobile command center, and the Emergency Services Unit, ESU, all arrive on site. News of the robbery also reaches Arthur Case, the bank's founder and chairman. Finally, Detective Frazier arrives outside the bank and connects with Sergeant Collins as they begin preparing their strategy to manage the crisis. Inside the bank, the robbers force all the hostages downstairs near the vault. One of the robbers, a woman, begins separating the bank employees from the regular customers. Dalton announces that they will collect everyone's cell phones and keys. He instructs the female robber, whom he calls Stevie, to separate the men from the women and tells them all to undress.
Let me talk to you, please!
What's with you?
Getting shot in the fucking head.
Dalton then hands out painter coveralls, along with fume masks and dark-tinted safety glasses, ordering everyone to wear them. Now, with everyone dressed the same, the hostages and robbers are indistinguishable from one another. Meanwhile, outside the bank, Detectives Frazier and Mitchell meet Captain John Darius of the Emergency Services Unit, ESU. Darius tells them to wait for a call at a nearby diner once they are ready to brief them on the situation. Back inside the bank, one of the hostages starts coughing and struggling to breathe. Dalton grabs him and escorts him to the entrance, eventually pushing him outside. Because the man is wearing the same painter outfit as the robbers, the police can't immediately tell if he's a hostage or one of the criminals, so they handcuff him and take him away. At this point, the film begins to shift back and forth between the present and the aftermath of the robbery. We see Frazier and Mitchell conducting post-robbery interviews, trying to identify the robbers among the hostages. In the current timeline, Dalton and Stevie walk past the vault and the safety deposit boxes, heading into a storeroom filled with office supplies and equipment. Elsewhere in Manhattan, a powerful fixer named Madeline White is meeting with a nephew of Osama bin Laden, who is attempting to purchase property in New York. Their meeting is interrupted when White's assistant informs her that Arthur Case, the chairman of the bank, is on the line. White takes the call. Case explains he has a delicate issue that requires someone with her expertise and absolute discretion. White assures him she's more than capable of handling it. We then cut back to the aftermath, where Frazier and Mitchell are interviewing a young man who tells them the robbers all referred to each other using variations of the name Stephen, Steve, Stevie, and so on. Back in the present, White and Case are seen walking along the riverfront discussing Case's real concern. He has valuable family heirlooms stored in a safety deposit box inside the bank currently under siege. In the mobile command center near the bank, the detectives learn that Dalton disabled the bank's surveillance system using infrared light, making it difficult to review footage of the crime. Next, the robbers release another hostage. His hands are tied behind his back, and there's a metal case strapped to his chest. Once outside, he identifies himself as Vikram Walia, a bank employee. Elsewhere in Manhattan, Madeline White visits the mayor. She tells him she plans to go to the hostage scene and asks him to ensure she's given full access and respect by those in charge. It's clear she has enough influence to get the mayor's cooperation, although her exact reasons for going remain unclear. Back at the command center, Frazier opens the metal case that was strapped around Vikram's neck. It's empty, but inside is a written demand from the robbers. They want 2 buses and a fully fueled staffed airplane. If their demands aren't met, they threaten to execute a hostage live on TV every hour. Frazier, however, refuses to give in and sarcastically states that the robbers won't even get a cup of coffee until he speaks directly with them. Meanwhile, Dalton steps outside and hands a police officer a note requesting enough food to feed all the hostages. Inside the mobile command center, an officer suggests sending pizzas, with hidden transmitters placed inside the boxes, to listen in on conversations inside the bank. Inside the bank, one of the hostages, Peltz, becomes frustrated, removes his mask, and starts arguing with the other hostages. He's clearly losing his composure. Dalton quickly storms in, grabs him by the ankle, drags him into the storeroom, and punches him, knocking him out. The pizzas, with the hidden bugs, are delivered to Dalton. Soon after, the police begin picking up audio from inside the bank. They hear a foreign language being spoken. At the same time, Stevie hands her gun to Steve, removes her gloves and dark glasses, and puts on an eye mask, identical to the ones the hostages are forced to wear. She then starts loudly crying hysterically, pretending to be a frightened hostage. Steve plays along, roughly pushing her into a separate room and making her sit with the others. He then grabs another female hostage who is about the same height as Stevie and treats her aggressively. He moves her to another room, making sure all the hostages are wearing their masks and keeping their hands on the ground. In the next scene, Stevie is seen working in the storeroom, now disguised and blending in as a hostage. She closely resembles the female hostage from earlier. Back in the command center, officers analyze the audio from the bugged pizza boxes, but they soon realize the robbers are tricking them. The foreign language they were hearing isn't real communication. It's a recording of Enver Hoxha, the former president of Albania, who has been dead for over 20 years. Back inside the bank, Stevie and Dalton go into the safety deposit box room. They carefully open one of the boxes and remove an envelope labeled with Arthur Case's name. Inside the envelope are several legal documents. Beneath it, they find multiple black velvet pouches and a red jewelry box. Meanwhile, White arrives at the scene accompanied by the mayor. She requests a meeting with Frazier, insisting that she wants to communicate with the robbers directly. Frazier is doubtful about involving her, but eventually agrees. Soon after, Frazier makes first contact with Dalton over the phone. Dalton takes control of the conversation and warns Frazier that the lives of many innocent people depend on him fulfilling the robbers' demands. The film jumps forward again to the aftermath of the robbery. Frazier and Mitchell are now interviewing another hostage, but unknown to them, it's actually Steve, one of the robbers, who gives his name as Kenneth Dearens. Back in the bank during the robbery, several hostages are sitting together passing the time in conversation. One of them, Chaim, introduces himself as a professor of criminal law at Columbia University, specializing in genocide, slave labor, and war reparations. He mentions that he's also a former attorney. Later, Frazier meets with White again outside the mobile command center. They make another call to Dalton, this time so White can speak directly with him. During the call, White tells Dalton that if he allows her to ensure that certain interests are protected, she can help him achieve his goal. After she assures him that she is neither a police officer nor a bank employee, Dalton agrees to let her come inside and speak with him face to face. Frazier and 2 officers escort White to the bank entrance. Once inside, she presents her deal to Dalton. If he surrenders now, she can guarantee he'll receive no more than the minimum prison sentence. And once released, he'll find $2 million waiting for him in a secure location. Surprisingly, Dalton refuses the offer. He then questions her about the interests she is trying to protect and proceeds to tell her a story. He describes an American man who worked as a clerk for a Swiss bank during World War II. This man cooperated with the Nazis, using his position to enrich himself while others were being robbed and murdered. He later used that blood money to establish a bank in New York. Dalton then reveals that the man he's talking about is Arthur Case, the bank's current chairman. He shows White the legal documents he retrieved from Case's safety deposit box, the very box she was sent to protect. After telling White that the documents now belong to him, Dalton says he's keeping them as leverage. If he's ever arrested and put on trial, White and Case will have no choice but to protect him, using all their power and influence to keep him from going to prison. Back outside the bank, Frazier debriefs White about his conversation with Dalton. White believes that Dalton has no intention of killing anyone, but Frazier isn't so sure. The film jumps forward again to post-robbery interrogations. It's revealed that Peltz, the hostage who pulled off his mask and got knocked out by Dalton, was actually Steo, another member of the crew. This shows that all three Stevens, Steve, Steo, and Stevie, had moments where they acted up as hostages, all part of the plan to make them blend in and appear as victim. Frazier and Mitchell are also seen interviewing Stevie, but she doesn't crack. She blends in too well, and the detectives can't find any clue to distinguish her from the rest of the hostages. Back in the present timeline, Frazier starts to suspect that Dalton is stalling for time. He calls Dalton and bluffs, telling him that the plane he demanded is ready. But Frazier has to come into the bank to check on the hostage's condition and confirm that no one has been harmed. Dalton agrees and lets Frazier inside. He leads him through a set of connected rooms where hostages are all seated, masked and dressed identically, making it impossible to tell who's who. As they approach the exit, Frazier tries to trick Dalton by offering a handshake. It's a ruse. Frazier lunges forward and tries to wrestle Dalton to the ground. But before he can succeed, Steo appears and jams a rifle into Frazier's back. The robbers force Frazier out of the bank, where he's met by Mitchell. Back at the command center, Frazier briefs Captain Darius. But just then, a horrifying scene unfolds. Dalton and his team execute a hostage on camera, sending a chilling message to the authorities. Next, Darius and the other officers begin preparing for a full assault on the bank. They review blueprints and plan to use rubber bullets to reduce the risk of killing hostages. However, early the next morning, Frazier realizes something critical. The metal case sent out earlier with Vikram was bugged, not by the police, but by Dalton himself. That means Dalton knew about the planned storming of the bank all along. Frazier grabs a mic and frantically warns Darius that the robbers have heard everything. But Darius refuses to abort the mission. He's already committed to storming the bank. Inside, Dalton alerts the three Stevens, and they begin setting off smoke grenades. They guide the hostages into the hallway as confusion spreads. Just as the police prepare for their final assault, a small explosive blows open the door. One by one, people in painter suits come running out, begging the police not to shoot. Despite this, some officers open fire using rubber bullets, adding to the chaos. The police open fire until Captain Darius orders them to hold their fire. Everyone who exited the bank is herded together and made to lie on the ground. They are handcuffed, and their masks are removed. Then, the ESU officers and detectives enter the bank, sweeping through each room. As they search, they quickly realize what Frazier had already suspected. This was not a normal bank robbery. No money was taken.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
The rifles used by the three Stevens, left behind so they could blend in with the escaping hostages, turn out to be toys. In the women's bathroom, officers find the white sack used in the supposed hostage execution. Inside, it is a hidden injector tube filled with red dye, proving that the execution was fake. No one was actually killed. Meanwhile, all hostages are taken to the station for questioning. Officers record each person's name and take photographs before putting them on buses. Stevie gives her real name as Valerie Keepsake, while the professor gives his name as Kami A., the criminal law professor from Columbia. Later, Frazier meets Captain Coughlin in a conference room. He explains just how perfectly and flawlessly the heist was carried out. Every hostage was shown pictures and asked if anyone had seemed suspicious, but each hostage had a few people who could vouch that they were just another victim. Coughlin, clearly frustrated, tells Frazier to bury the case. As Frazier gets up to leave, Coughlin casually tells him that the missing money he was accused of embezzling has been found. Frazier is off the hook, but Frazier doesn't seem relieved, just confused and slightly suspicious. Back at his office, Frazier notices that safety deposit box 392 is missing from the bank's records. That's the same box where Dalton and his crew found the documents connected to Arthur Case. Grabbing his jacket, Frazier tells Mitchell to come with him. Frazier heads to the courthouse where he finds Madeline White waiting. She brings up their supposed arrangement, promising him a promotion if he buries the case. But Frazier isn't playing along. He pulls out a pen, actually a hidden recording device, and plays back a conversation from inside the SUV, where the mayor had threatened his career unless he cooperated with White. This recording proves that the entire situation was politically manipulated. Frazier confronts White, pressing her about Arthur Case. He knows there's more to the story, but she asks him again to drop the case. Frazier says nothing and walks away. In the next scene, White boldly walks into a private gentleman's club and confronts Arthur Case, the powerful bank owner, about the robbery and what was truly taken. After discovering that Case's safe deposit box contained more than just documents proving his crimes, White realized that he must have been hiding something truly valuable. There was only one thing it could be: the diamonds the Nazis used to pay Case. Case adds that there was also a Cartier ring of incalculable worth, which belonged to a wealthy Parisian Jewish banker and his family. Case could have easily saved their lives, but the Nazis gave him the ring to betray them. Case then writes White a check as payment for her services before she leaves. The scene shifts back to Dalton, who repeats his opening monologue. He is in his cell holding one of the black velvet pouches, looking at the diamonds inside. He gathers a few belongings, turns off 2 small lights, and pushes out a wall in his cell. It is revealed that he was never in prison, but was hiding behind a false wall he and his associates built in the bank supply room, stocked with enough provisions to wait out until the robbery news died down. Dalton then carefully makes his way out into the public area of the bank. Across the street, Kenneth, Valerie, and Darius are waiting in an SUV, along with Kamie, who is revealed to be part of the job and the mastermind behind it all. They see Frazier and Mitchell entering the bank and hurriedly call Dalton on his cell phone to warn him, but Dalton is unafraid. He even accidentally bumps into Frazier as he and Mitchell enter the bank. Dalton then quietly leaves the bank and gets into a waiting van, greeted with a kiss from Valerie and handshakes from Kenneth, Darius, and Kamie. When Kamie notes that Dalton doesn't have the ring with him, Dalton says he left it in the safety deposit box but assures Kamie it is in very good hands. Inside the bank, Frazier and Mitchell inspect safety deposit box 392. They are surprised and amused to find an unfinished pack of juicy fruit gum, but they also find a jewelry box containing an exquisite gold and diamond ring. There is also a small scrap of paper with the words "Follow the ring" scribbled on it. Next, the detectives visit Case at his office. Frazier reveals what he has uncovered during the investigation, showing that he knows Case hired Madeline White to keep Frazier restrained and that Case himself is guilty of serious crimes. Frazier shows Case the ring, warning him that he will follow its trail. Frazier then goes to an exclusive diner where the mayor is having lunch with Madeline White. He gives White the pen with the incriminating recording he used as leverage against her. That evening, Frazier arrives home and is greeted by Sylvia. As he stores away his gun, shield, and promotion plaque to first grade, thanks to White's influence, he notices a small object in his suit coat pocket. Reaching inside, he is stunned to find a small but beautifully cut diamond. He smiles to himself in amusement, realizing that Dalton was the man who bumped into him at the bank entrance and, as a sign of respect, slipped the diamond to Frazier so that the detective could get a proper engagement ring made and propose to Sylvia.